When it comes to video games, the age-old debate of whether gameplay or story is king has only grown more prominent as voice acting and motion capture technologies become more and more sophisticated. Let's just say the hilarious days of Jill's sandwiches are all but a distant memory.
You were almost a Jill sandwich.
No matter where you fall on the argument though, there's no denying the quality of gaming narratives have skyrocketed over the past 8 years or so. There's been so many noteworthy ones that I'm inevitably going to piss off some people by only doing a top 10 here, so here's a quick rundown of 20 to 11 that made it into the article version of this list but unfortunately had to be cut here. Number 20, Heavy Rain. Number 19, Alan Wake. Number 18, Call of Duty Black Ops. Number 17, Until Dawn. Number 16, Mass Effect 2. I'm sorry it's so low. Number 15, Soma. Number 14, Gone Home. Number 13, God of War 2018. Number 12, What Remains of Edith Finch. And in at number 11, Spider-Man. So with those lot out the way, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 best video game storylines of the decade so far. Number 10, Bioshock Infinite. Even though it doesn't always make the most sense and the implications of its mad ending could leave your head spinning for months, Bioshock Infinite's dimension-jumping story undeniably has something about it. Between finding out why Elizabeth is so special to understanding why Father Comstock is like a big racist Santa Claus, the narrative of Infinite raises many tantalizing questions and, thankfully, mostly has a satisfying answer for them somewhere down the line. But it's not the story of revolution or even the great character of Elizabeth that raises Infinite above other games on this list. It's the way that the title's ending expertly links the story back to the original game. Although the two could have easily existed side by side without raising many eyebrows, Infinite goes one step further to establish a connection between the two, and in doing so completely smashes the idea of video game sequels altogether. And look, I know it's kinda become cool to hate on Infinite, so would you kindly not go to the comments to tell me how terrible I am for saying all this good stuff. Number 9, Nier Automata. Nier Automata is not a game you can easily sum up in a minute of screen time. Initially telling the basic story of a battle between humans and aliens, the former of which use sexy robots to do all the fighting for them because, yeah, the game eventually morphs into something far more complex, completely undermining everything you thought you knew about its narrative. Hell, you need to play the game 3 times just to scratch the surface of what's going on. No, I am not kidding. Though some titles are obtuse for the sake of it, Automata earns just how convoluted and mad its story can get. Likewise, despite being robots, A2 and 9S in particular showcase more personality than most human heroes, having to deal with huge questions surrounding the meaning of life, all the while trying to not be killed by giant murder machines or have their pants blown off by kinky players. Look, there's no shaming going on here, it's just a fact of life. This is all on top of amazing side quests as well, each telling their own isolated narratives. In many ways, this is where the game shines the most, as who doesn't love helping suicidal robots understand their place in the world? I mean, it's all I do every weekend. Number 8, Red Dead Redemption. It would have been easy for Rockstar going into Red Dead Redemption to give players an over-the-top spaghetti western. After all, the game's predecessor, Red Dead Revolver, was pretty much just that. Yet with the sequel, Rockstar instead attempted to craft an unconventionally serious experience that defied the cliches of the genre. As a result, it plays out more like an anti-western than anything else, with the narrative dealing with everything from your standard grave-robbing bandits to the supernatural phenomena present in the best Old West tales. Sure, there's still some classic rootin' tootin' I wanna be a cowboy baby antics, but they're treated with a seriousness and love for the genre that keeps the tone mature throughout. With characters that have real emotional weight behind them, a great assortment of complex bad guys that you love to hate, and, yep, one of the most heartbreaking video game deaths this side of Final Fantasy VII. What you're left with is one of the most definitive Western stories to grace any medium, never mind video games. Number 7, Firewatch. Firewatch, weirdly, is one of the most divisive games of the past few years. For some, its incredibly atmospheric and isolating contemplation of loss and responsibility meant nothing when no last-minute twist that took what's ostensibly 2 characters talking for 4 hours into Twin Peaks territory materialized. Thankfully, once you know that's not what you're getting, the game works much more as an understated personal experience, and like Gone Home before, it succeeds entirely because it gets you into the heads of the characters as they overcome overthink their situation and become paranoid about the strange events happening around them. Although the eventual reveal of what's going on isn't a mind-blowing twist, it doesn't really matter in the long run, because the campfire mystery was never what Firewatch was all about in the first place. Number 6. To the Moon. Like every great story, there's your life pre To the Moon and after. Centered on technology that lets dying people live any life goal they didn't achieve, you play as two scientists, Neil and Eva, as they tend to the catatonic Johnny and his wish to literally go to the moon. The method behind fulfilling his request requires delving into his mind, into his memories, and into his troubled life with partner River. Quickly, you unravel a touching, relatable, and gut-punchingly resonant tale of struggle, strained relationships, and ultimately, harmony. Yes, the game aspects are very much in the background, but when you're picking apart the driven story firsthand, walking through memories and interacting with characters that all flesh out Johnny's life, it connects like nothing else. Written and coded by one person, there's a real sense of authorship and auteurship to the Moon that lets it stand out as recommendable to anybody. Number 5. Uncharted 4. While Uncharted has always been a chef's kiss caliber series of games, the actual stories have never been anything to write home about. They've been damn enjoyable, sure, but they never really been deeper than those you'd find in, say, your average Fast and Furious film. Again, that's awesome, but it's not really deep. Uncharted 4 completely changed that though. Although it featured the same swashbuckling fun the franchise was known for, this time around the game was tackling decidedly more mature themes, delving into these characters as real people with real emotions, hopes, and fears that any player could relate to. Not only that, but even the core pirate adventure this time around was more complex than it had any right to be, which ultimately gave the game's setting, Libertalia, a tangible history and context that you totally believed in. Concluding, this series was never going to be easy, but Naughty Dog pulled it off and then some. Number 4. Horizon Zero Dawn. The release that launched Guerrilla Games to the next level, Horizon Zero Dawn might just be the most important PS4 exclusive released so far. The open world game itself plays brilliantly, of course, but it's the rich mythology the developers created that will sustain Horizon as a top-tier franchise moving forward. Telling Aloy's story from being an outcast to humanity's savior, the narrative is genuinely epic, mixing inter-tribe politics with post-apocalyptic action. Picking up in the 31st century after the fall and rebirth of humanity put a twist on the genre that hasn't really been explored in movies or video games. And the backstory of why the landscape is the way it is offered one of the most gripping and imaginative end-of-the-world tales in the medium. Horizon managed to be both grandiose and epic while still remaining intimate and personal, nailing world building while also delivering a focused and complete narrative in its own right. Also, who doesn't love watching robot dinosaurs fight each other? I mean, yeah, 10 out of 10 game of the year. Number 3. The Last of Us. There was never a guarantee that The Last of Us would actually be any good. Coming out at a time when post-apocalyptic tales were already overdone in video games, Naughty Dog's opus was fighting an uphill battle of genre fatigue when it released in 2013. Thankfully, developers staved off this burnout by subverting end-of-the-world cliches at every single step. Although it starts out familiar enough, there's family trauma, there's searching for a cure to the epidemic, The Last of Us slowly unfolds into something far removed from your standard save-the-world narrative. And in the end, the game is more about how far you'd go to protect your family than killing monsters. The core dynamic between Father Joel and pseudo-daughter Ellie drives the entire campaign, and the way they grow to depend on each other in an unhealthy yet successful way makes for some genuinely heartbreaking moments over the 15 hours you get to spend with them. Number 2. Spec Ops: The Line. With one of the most unreliable narrators gaming has ever seen, Spec Ops: The Line came out of nowhere with a plot that made you question why shooters have always been such a popular staple of the industry. Loosely adapting the classic novel Heart of Darkness, Spec Ops has you waging a personal war as you attempt to track down a rogue soldier the USA has lost contact with, thanks to an extreme sandstorm in Dubai. However, as the game goes on, it becomes difficult to tell who the real villain is, and eventually it's revealed that the player character has been killing innocent people and indulging in his own bloodlust while isolated in the sandstorm this whole time. The way the title slowly pulls back this curtain is expertly handled. Mwah, like seriously, it's so good, and you genuinely do start to question yourself as you continue to slaughter hundreds of soldiers as the game goes on. It's a bit of a shame that the gameplay itself couldn't be as innovative as the narrative, but when you've got a story this good, a little bit of repetitive shooting shouldn't stop you from experiencing one of the best gaming tales of the past decade. Number 1. The Walking Dead Season 1. The game that both put Telltale back on the map and tragically killed it. The Walking Dead Season 1 will eternally be the studio's masterpiece. The story of Clementine and her new father figure Lee attempting to survive in the early days of a zombie apocalypse at first seems a little bit overdone. Hell, even other games on this list boast a similar plot, but Telltale got in on it first. The bond between the two characters was the obvious emotional anchor, but outside of that relationship, The Walking Dead was just a bloody good post-apocalyptic story. It really did have everything and was the proof that narrative-driven games could succeed in an era obsessed with matching Call of Duty's level of gameplay-driven bombast. And it's a shame its legacy had to end the way it did. That's our list. I'm sure this is going to be a contentious topic, but I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Which games do you think deserve a spot on this list, and which ones do you just think are outright wrong? And while you're there, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. I've been Josh, you've been watching WhatCulture, and I'll see you soon. Bye.